So we've already started getting, like I mentioned, a few question and answers. So I'm going to mix things up a little bit, Bikram, take some questions from the audience. I have Kumar Mohanty asking, what do you think is the scope for an edupreneur today? Education.
Um, Definitely, huge current, especially in the current market scenario, there is a scope. Of course, edutech as a sector, I have personally looked at quite a few investment opportunities, but initially it was very hard to really invest in that sector because of the way the sector is structured, especially if you're in the school business or anything which requires infrastructure or asset heaviness.
Of course.
That becomes very tough. And plus the way the education is structured in India, there's a lot of a political aspect of the business. There's a lot of political money also in the sector. But we've seen a shift happening over time. And, as the education went more and more digital, that is when the opportunities started coming up in very different way. So now we are seeing a lot of AR, VR applications in education where you can actually understand the science aspects and the other aspects actually by, seeing these things in a very different way. I think those things will do very well, we are looking for opportunities in that space as we speak. We are evaluating a few edtech deals also.
Very nice. No, it's amazing to see, the Byju's and the Udemy's of the world, the way that they've just exploded, and especially during this entire lockdown and pandemic.
Right.
So more power to them and their competitors.
Absolutely.
I have another question where Vijay is asking, in your opinion, you probably meet hundreds of entrepreneurs on a monthly basis, or maybe your team does. What kind of skills or behaviors do you look for? As, I know there must be a whole host of situations, but if you had to narrow it down.
Yeah, in fact, this question has been asked the most in any of the discussions that investors have and in investor entrepreneur interactions.
Correct.
The answer is very consistently same. Typically, the first thing that you look for is the entrepreneur himself or herself or the team working together.
Of course.
And the problem they're solving and what specific problem they're solving and why they're solving that problem.
Correct.
Solving that problem because they're very passionate about solving that problem, or they're doing it just because it's fashionable and somebody else raised $30 million recently and I can also raise money and I know that person. If he can raise, why can't I raise? So that kind of an attitude I've seen. If that is your reason to go and become an entrepreneur, I think that's probably will show up during the investor. It will come out. So you have to be fighting for the right cause, and you have to be genuinely passionate about it. So that's and being an entrepreneur myself, I can make out in the first meeting itself. In fact, a little bit of details you can make out that, and of course, then one has to be able to articulate. You may actually be very passionate about it, and you may be doing it for the right reason. But if you cannot articulate it, and the investor doesn't understand, if you can't convince me, then once I invest in you and you have to raise more capital, how will you convince somebody else later on?
Absolutely.
So, and of course, then there are lots of other factors in terms of the unit economics of the business, the scalability aspect, the competition. All those are very standard kind of things that one needs to go into. But I think the fundamental issues are these.
No, I think, and I completely agree with you, Vikram, that if you can't talk about the problem that you're solving and even articulate why you or your team are the best people to solve it, that is the first hurdle that unfortunately you should be able to cross.
Yeah.
You're one of those unique funds, Vikram, that has also made 2 investments during the lockdown in India, at least that I've heard of. Would you like to talk a little bit about those 2 investments?
So 2 investments we announced during last 8-10 weeks. There's a company called Conversite, which is a tool for online communities and very unique model where, you see more and more people, being part of these online communities talking of a common subject.
Of course.
These tools will be used to manage these communities better. And Conversite founders came across as very, very smart set of a husband-wife team, in fact. Came from the US and understood this in a lot of depth and the reason they were doing it and and the traction they had achieved, having achieved a 30 million user kind of a base.
Amazing.
Achieved. So we thought, this kind of was a no-brainer, given the fact that, post-COVID, this is going to increase more and more, and
True.
get into online communities in specific subject areas. So we were very quick in taking that call. The second one is a company called FingPay, which is an Aadhaar-based banking platform for rural India. So they actually help rural customers to really transact on a platform for doing the banking transactions through these merchants, offline merchants across rural India. And there are about 125,000 such merchants that they work through. Very unique, innovative model where the banks do not want to invest in branches or ATMs in those areas, and these
Correct.
become those channels. Again, something which had scaled up quite a bit without raising any institutional capital. And we were the first institutional investor in them, almost having reached almost 20% of the total transaction volume of the entire country without raising any capital, and actually doing it profitably is something that is unbelievable. So we immediately decided that, look, COVID or no COVID, this business is actually something that will scale up and do well, and decided to go ahead with that. And therefore, it doesn't matter, of course, there are situations like these actually throw new kinds of opportunities, and you will always keep looking for such opportunities.
Absolutely. No, more power to IVCap as well as to your investments as well. I'm going to combine two questions into one for you, Vikram. We have both Sudha and Kumar wondering about the potential of the pharma industry as well as the social sector, both as in terms of market as well as investments.
Yeah, so pharma sector, of course, has a lot of potential. I mean, if you look at the size of the industry, we're talking about almost about $22 to $25 billion industry today in India.
Correct.
Growing at almost about 15%. And I think the interesting part there is the industry is not very organized today. It's primarily driven by generic manufacturers, and
of course,
historically has not been driven by innovation in terms of new chemical entities or new drugs. So therefore, that offers opportunities on multiple kind of levels. One is, of course, opportunity to streamline this entire supply chain, and that's what one of our companies, PharmaRack, is doing. And the other is actually build a lot of data around, the entire the drugs flow that happen right from the manufacturing till the point of consumption. And that actually has the potential to fundamentally change the entire way the healthcare is administered in this country or globally. And I think data has a huge role to play in the pharma business. On the social impact side, there are, of course, social impact, can be looked at from different lenses.
Correct.
One lens is, there are investors who look mainly from the impact perspective only rather than the financial impact in terms of number of jobs created, whether you had, gender equality and things like those, climate impact and all those. On the other side, what IVCap also intends to do going forward, we actually want to combine the impact with the commercial aspect, and
of course,
something like an SDG framework, which is Sustainable Development Goals, which are the goals launched by United Nations. There were 17 goals with 169 targets. We believe that you can map those goals and targets to any company, even if the company is a manufacturing company, even who's generating pollution. The goals can be applied to even those companies. And, in fact, I was talking to the person who's created those goals in United Nations, and he said that you would rather invest in a polluting company to actually help them then understand over a period of time why you should not pollute and what are the alternative ways of achieving the same end goals.
Interesting.
So, which is what kind of was very interesting aspect to learn. And that's where we decided that we will go with our third fund, which will be kind of combining these aspects and looking at SDG framework. to invest, and we'll apply this even our portfolio companies and see how you can actually create a much bigger impact without compromising on your financial returns.
Got it.
Yeah, that's basically just to answer the question.
And speaking of the UN, we actually have a question from Arjun based out of New York. He works with the UNICEF in New York. And he's wondering, with the volatility in global markets, what do you think the mutual fund scenario is going to be like over the next couple of years?
Well, I mean, mutual funds is definitely not my area, but still, I would still try to address that from the understanding I have.
Of course.
But I think broadly speaking, I would say that of course, the valuations are obviously really factoring that where the scenario has been building up. But you will see mutual funds mostly targeted towards technology oriented investments.
Agreed.
Much more like, for example, if you have a Zoom in your portfolio, or likes of Zoom, which are actually doing well, I think obviously you'll do a very different, you'll see a very different kind of returns. So mutual funds, which are maybe sector oriented mutual funds, might have a very different kind of outlook as compared to just an index oriented mutual funds or even bonds. I think bonds will have a very different kind of outcome. But I think I would say that one would see, better returns in anything which is, sector oriented. Within sectors, healthcare, technology, and other sectors which are definitely going to continue to do well. So that is probably what one is going to see.
No, and I tend to agree with you, because even with the public relations disaster that currently China is facing, I'm sure a lot of the world's attention is also going to be focused on India and seeing how we are able to step up and take advantage of this entire situation.
Yeah.
I have Saksham, who is asking, what kind of advice are you giving the entrepreneurs on your portfolio companies for the future, and how can they, either react or essentially continue to do business post-COVID, if there is such a thing?
No, absolutely. Of course, one is the immediate shock, right? I mean, everybody is in a state of shock. All of a sudden, your graph is going like this, and suddenly, month of April, where you're like suddenly, zero. I mean, I heard somebody saying that, the revenues of one of the biggest retailers and my revenues today are same, right? I mean, a small startup and a large company had almost the same revenues in the month of April. And that's true. I mean, that also in a way has brought, in the minds of people, at least, everybody is at the same level playing field.
Correct.
But at the same time, I think the fundamentals are very important. And some of the basic fundamentals are, on the cost side, are you burning in areas which are not core to your business? So therefore the attention has gone to immediately optimizing your costs. Are you still keeping an eye on the long-term value? Are you able to forecast what's going to happen with this entire scenario? If there's going to be a shift of people going from offline to online, how is that going to impact your business?
Correct.
So I think that these are the questions that people need to ask, and we are asking lots of these questions to all our entrepreneurs. And one of the other big learnings for us is, we got all our companies together in a single call, and we said, okay, let's build a metric of, all the companies and see how each one of you can contribute to the rest of the portfolio. It was a very interesting exercise, where we realized that, there were lots of things that, one could derive from others and add to others, which was huge value creator exercise in itself. So it's an opportunity, even if, not necessarily for fund managers, but also companies who, are in a similar business. And if you know each other, you can get together and see how you can add value to each other.
Absolutely.
Time to collaborate and really, give value to each other. And this time we are actually doing more and more of portfolio kind of engagement, trying to make sure that they are not getting too worried and they're not getting too stressed. and even doubling down on the investment where required in a portfolio company.
I can imagine. No, I think it's a great point that if you do have companies that can collaborate within your portfolio, it's a win-win scenario, I believe, for everyone.
Yeah.
We have Mr. Binay Swen asking, Vikram, what do you think are the key success factors for a successful investor?
I think first of all, you should invest in an area that you know very well. I think there's one of the things which I've learned. I mean, I've tried to invest in an area which I personally didn't know very well. And I realized later on that even the support, I didn't get the kind of support I needed, so I think, and then of course I learned that over time, but I think at the time when I invested in that area, I didn't know as much as in other areas. So you should always think of investing in the area which you understand, and kind of really track that, track any changes happening in that, because changes happen very dynamically. And in a scenario like this, what kind of decisions you would take, so that all depends on how well you understand the space. And the second is, and that is, driven by, again, the philosophy of the venture capital, especially in our case. We're not passive investors. We're very active investors. And when we invest, we want to have a board seat. We want to have minimum rights, more to make sure that, the entrepreneurs don't go in the wrong direction, just to keep them in the right direction and to actually drive their business. So wherever there is a possibility of having an influence, the investment becomes very important. That's why I said I'm not an expert in mutual funds, because it's all about just macros. So I think understanding the space very well, having an influence in the area, and the third is having the ability to add value. And if you can't add value, and if you're expecting somebody else to add value, then effectively you are leaving too much to luck. Try to keep things to the point where you can bring a lot of value. And fortunately, with the Ivy Cap platform, we incorporate all these things into the investment thesis.
No, and I think, whenever we talk about investors that stand out from the rest, it's always about what are you bringing in as value in addition to the money that you're offering.
Right.
The value adds. There was a lot of buzz about electrical vehicles till almost, I would say, 6 or 9 months ago. Mansi is asking, what do you think of electric vehicle sector now after everything that has happened? And a very specific question, and I don't know if you have any portfolio companies. Do you prefer lead acid as a tech or a lithium ion as far as powering the electric vehicles?
Yeah, no, I understand the question. I think it's first of all, in the area that electric vehicles, I think is that a space that one would want to invest in? Absolutely, yes. That's the next wave. You will see huge opportunities building up. The challenge there is, really identifying the right assets. And I think there have been various models with respect to the shared economy kind of models where, there's electric bikes or scooters or bicycles, which are kind of, building their own business models. Many of them are actually very asset-heavy businesses. And any as I mentioned to you, if they're asset-heavy businesses where you're buying these assets on your books, then it becomes very difficult to scale those businesses. If there are models to work on without investing in those assets, then they can be scaled faster.
Correct.
What we started seeing also is a lot of competition has started building up in that space, and typically one of the typical questions that comes is that would you really invest in that company after seeing like two large players in that market? Would a third player have a space in that? And I think that's a difficult question to answer, specifically given the subsectors, etc. So,
of course,
so we have evaluated the space in depth and haven't really concluded any opportunity yet, but we are keen on investing in that space.
Thank you. I want to switch to a personal question, Vikram, before we go back to the audience. Let's pretend for a couple of minutes that Vikram is now talking to 21-year-old Vikram. He's just moving to the US, to do his MBA and to do his education. What are the two pieces of advice that you would like to give yourself?
When you're talking about a 21-year-old Vikram, you also have to make sure that other things also.
Of course.
Right. I mean, did we have cell phones at that time? There were no cell phones at that time. Did we have access to information? Did we have Google at that time? Right.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, we didn't even have email access, right? To send an email, I had to go to department in one computer science department. There used to be one computer which used to be there, which you can use only in certain hours. So of course the times were very different.
Absolutely.
So there was huge information asymmetry in terms of what you knew versus what your colleagues knew and what others knew. So one, of course, if I were to, this question can be looked at from two aspects. If I were to look at that time and that me at that time, the advice would be different as compared to assuming that it's a current environment and I'm still young. So I guess your question may be more towards the second part, because the individuals who are at 21 years of age today, what is the advice they should have?
Sure.
So I think in that sense, I would say that follow your heart, follow your dreams, and especially in today's world when you have access to a lot of information, and everybody has. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not the only one who knows everything. Your competition also knows everything. If you're passionate about something, just go take the risk. And many times you keep delaying your decision. And by the time you turn to 40, you start, repenting that, is it too late? And then a pressure starts building up on you that I want to do something now. Too late by that time, in my view. I think that's the reason you're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs coming up now, and there's a lot of parent support and a lot of angel networks and a lot of VCs in the market.
Correct.
But I think if you have an idea, don't worry about it. Just go do it. There'll be people wanting to support you. And entrepreneurs, it's very difficult to be an entrepreneur, but at the same time, once you become an entrepreneur, you get the most support. And special advice to women entrepreneurs or women who want to be entrepreneurs, and they're very, percentage wise, they're very less as compared to men.
Correct.
If you want to be a woman entrepreneur, I think you will get even more support in this market. And, you should just go and do it. I think don't worry too much about if this happens and what happens. Of course, plan your things properly. But
Absolutely.
Go and execute on your dream and the plan.
Thank you, Vikram. So just last couple of questions from the audience as well. I have Varun, who's trying to transition from being a consultant to being an investor. So he's wondering, what are the factors that I should consider in the transition?
I think if you've been an entrepreneur, you've already crossed the first hurdle. Only an entrepreneur who turns to an investor can empathize with an entrepreneur. And this is a very common complaint that entrepreneurs have, that, investors don't understand their language. And that happens only if, you're talking to an investor who's an employee or has an employee mindset and is only looking at a book of rules that, I cannot invest in this, I cannot. So he will only ask questions based on, do you have this, do you don't have this, et cetera. So I think you already crossed the first hurdle in that sense. You will empathize more. And the second is, of course, I think, the first advice I would give you now that you made the shift is networking is extremely important. Now that you've become an investor, go network with as many people as possible, because ultimately it's the network that gives you access to good opportunities, good people who can give you better advice. So I think, of course, there are lots of other things in terms of, you have to have a lot of other things in terms of differentiation in investing and lots of other things.
Correct.
But networking and getting access to the right investors, therefore, if you're becoming a fund manager, capital, you're still an entrepreneur in that sense. If you're an investor, if you're going to raise funds, you're actually an entrepreneur in a harder space now. So you'll have to fight harder.
Absolutely. Vikram, is there anything that you would like to mention, anything that I may have missed out or we haven't talked about?
I think More or less you have covered things. It's really amazing talking to you, and I mean these kind of sessions also make you think about yourself and connect better with people. And definitely, I'm enjoying this session with you.
Thank you so much, Vikram. And what is next for Vikram and for IVCAP? What can we hope to see in the near future?
One is, of course, I believe that the model that we created, the platform that we created,
Mm-hmm.
is hugely scalable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just now IIT IIM network. It's a global alumni ecosystems. We want to scale this up not just in India but globally.
Okay.
Therefore, we believe that connect between the alumni and the entrepreneurs who may be from the similar schools or colleges actually continues to be our kind of key driving force. But at the same time, I think focusing on creating more and more value. Unless you create value for your investors and for your entrepreneurs, it really doesn't take you anywhere. So from IVCAP perspective, that is what the objective is, and keep scaling it up further. And from a personal goal perspective, right now and even in future, IVCAP is everything for me. And of course, on a personal front, I want to do more singing, more composition, and, more time with the family. So I think these are my personal goals.
Very nice. So Vikram, we wish you continued good health and success so that you can continue your dreams of community building as well as making IVCAP the success that it already is. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today. All of our viewers have really benefited from this interaction, and I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully sometime soon once the lockdown is over. And until then, please take care and wish you the best always.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. It's been lovely talking to you, and really appreciate doing this. And I'm glad that I could share my views, and it's always a pleasure talking to you as well.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Take care, and we'll definitely connect soon.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.